Okay, so while we're talking about kind of like things from other classes and stuff, you guys were asking me questions about caffeine. I would like to talk about something from the natural law of Kamma that I usually say in that talk that I didn't mention in terms of helping you to clean up your Kamma. Because the area that you really need to work on cleaning up your Kamma the most is within your relationships. And this is something that I usually talk about, but it slipped my mind that I didn't talk about it in our last talk. I mentioned it yesterday, but now I'm going to relate it to the natural law of Kamma. In terms of cleaning up your relationships and cleaning up your unwholesome Kamma in your relationships, there's three categories of relationships. There's certain relationships that you have now that are not going so well for you. Maybe there's bitterness and harshness in your mind. There's bitterness and harshness in the other person's mind, and you're just holding on to the relationship. And the best way to clean up this Kamma is to just let go of the relationship and move on. You don't have to go to the person and download all the reasons why you can't be their friend anymore. That's just listing out all your expectations and the things you want them to do. It's not wise to do that. Just move on from the relationship. Just kind of like go off onto the horizon. If you're currently texting them regularly or communicating with them regularly, just start putting more and more space between that and just slowly kind of move on from the relationship. And that's the first category of how you're going to clean up that Kamma. It's just by moving on from the relationship. You're not committed to the relationship. They're not committed to it. There's too much bitterness, too much hostility and harshness. It's better to just move on. Then there's a second category of relationships, people that you are committed to, and the relationship's not going so well, maybe with your parents or your siblings or a life partner or something like this. Maybe you guys are bitter and harsh and hostile with each other sometimes, like you heard with me and my wife. And now you're going to work on your mind and work to improve the condition of your mind, and now you'll perform better in those relationships, and that's going to clean up those relationships. As you heard with my wife, it took me 1.5 years to clean up that relationship, right? So there's that second category of people you're more committed to. But then there's the third category of relationships. These are brand new people that you've never even met yet. You don't even know their names right now. That when you meet those people, you'll only ever be loving and kind in those relationships. And now, through practicing generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom in those relationships, you'll only experience wholesome Kamma in those relationships. So this is how you clean up all your relationships. Let go of certain ones that aren't going well and that you're not committed to. Improve your mind in the ones that you're more committed to. Improve your mind and improve the relationship by functioning better in those relationships. And then the third category are brand new people that you'll only ever be loving and kind in those relationships. And now that's going to ensure that you're only experiencing wholesome Kamma in those relationships. I do teach another course, which is called Harmony in Relationships. That one's coming up in about 10 days from now, that you guys are welcome to attend. It's not next week, but it's the following week. And in that course, it's a 5-day course where I'm teaching you all about how to develop harmony in your relationship. So it's a really nice next step after this particular course. So if you're here in Chiang Mai, or if you would like to join online, or you'd like to watch the recordings, that would be the next step. And we'll be talking about that here in a minute with continued support. But that's where I talk about relationships and how to clean up your relationships and really get to a point where you have harmonious relationships. Because there's more than just what I talked about just here, but these are the three categories of relationships. But there's other things you need to know besides just that in order to clean up those relationships. Okay, so now I'm going to share with you guys this topic of what is merit. This is a wholesome type of Kamma that you're going to need to understand and be able to produce in order to continue to make your way to enlightenment. So the Buddha taught this topic of merit, and he taught the natural law of Kamma. Merit is wholesome Kamma that is generated through offerings and gifts to the community of virtuous ordained practitioners and anyone who has attained one of the 4 stages of enlightenment. This is where the Buddha referred to this group of people as the Aryan Sangha. When you're making offerings such as your time, effort, energy, and resources to help the continuation of the teachings of the Buddha, this is called merit, because one of the best things that you could ever do is help other people to get access to the teachings. Because as you're starting to learn and grow and develop with the teachings yourself, you're going to see that they work. They absolutely work. They will get you to enlightenment if you learn and practice them. And you'll get to a point where you might be interested in seeing other people get access to these teachings. And if you contribute time, effort, energy, or resources to be able to help other people to get access to the teachings, that's what we call merit. So I have this diagram that's going to help you to understand this. As part of your practice to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to practice generosity frequently, where you practice giving and sharing with other people around you. And it doesn't have to always be money, right? Sometimes when people hear that, they always think it's money because your resources financially are somewhat limited, right? You only have a certain amount of resources financially. So you might have a certain amount of financial generosity that you practice with the people around you. But remember, generosity is sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources. And you're going to need to do that frequently. And as you're practicing generosity where you're giving and sharing, you can ask yourself this question. Was this an offering to a teacher to support the continued sharing of the Buddha's teachings, helping others to attain enlightenment? If the answer is no, you're experiencing these benefits. It's helping you eliminate craving, desire, attachment within your own mind because you're practicing generosity, living open-handedly and sharing with other people. It's also helping you to generate wholesome results or wholesome Kamma because you're progressing towards the elimination of selfishness and the central desire, helping you get closer and closer to enlightenment. So if the answer is no, and you're practicing generosity and it wasn't towards the continuation of the teachings of the Buddha, you're getting these benefits. But if the answer is yes, that this offering was to help the continued sharing of the teachings of the Buddha, then you're still getting those benefits where you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment from the mind, and you're making your way towards enlightenment, eliminating selfishness. But also you're helping other people get access to the teachings of the Buddha. And that's what we refer to as merit. This is a unique type of wholesome Kamma that is based in generosity, and it's to help other people get access to the teachings. That's not your goal, is to run out into the world and do these kinds of things. But ultimately, some part of your practice, you're going to be looking at being interested to integrate these kinds of things. You're going to need generosity in all different directions with people around you, like your parents, your siblings, your coworkers, your friends, your family, but even people you don't know, people you've never met before. You're going to need to practice generosity. This is going to train your mind to eliminate selfishness. But then at some point, you might decide you would like to help support the continuation of the teachings of the Buddha, and that's what's referred to as merit. The Buddha gives you some different guidance on this, and I'm going to share a bunch of the words of the Buddha to be able to help you guys understand this topic. So here, this one is called an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. He says, monks, these 8 persons are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. What 8? The stream enterer, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of stream entry, the once returner, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of once returning, the non-returner, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of non-returning, the arahant, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of arahantship. These 8 persons, monks, are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. So I'm going to pause here and just explain what he's talking about, and then we'll go on. So what he's talking about here are the 4 stages of enlightenment. If you remember back to Monday, this is what we were talking about. It's stream entry, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. Arahant is where your mind is actually fully purified and the mind is actually enlightened. But there's different stages here. And what the Buddha is saying is that if you make an offering to someone in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, or someone who's practicing to get into one of those 4 stages of enlightenment, this is the production of merit and producing merit. Because these are the people that are practicing the teachings the closest and who understand the teachings the closest. And when you're making offerings to them, it's helping you to be able to come in contact with that person so that now you can gain wisdom to understand the path to enlightenment. There isn't anything mystical or magical here. It's not like if you walked in to an enlightened being, handed them a gift and walked away. It's not like you're magically going going to get all this benefit. There is some benefit that you're training your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, and eliminating selfishness. But the real benefit of making an offering to any of these people, including an enlightened being, is that you're coming in contact with someone who can help you to gain the wisdom of what it would take for you to get to enlightenment. And that's what the Buddha is going to talk about down here. He says, the four practicing the way, the four established in the fruit, this is the upright community, comprised in wisdom and virtuous behavior or moral conduct, for people intent on sacrifice, for living beings seeking merit, making merit that ripens in the acquisitions. What is given to the community bears great fruit. So what he's saying here is the 8 people that are practicing the teachings, these 8 types of people, he's saying this is the upright community. During the lifetime of the Buddha, we might think that he was the only person that was teaching. And because if you lived during the lifetime of a Buddha, you'd probably like to study directly with that person, right? But not everybody understood that he was a Buddha. There were some people who studied with him that knew he was a Buddha. Some people didn't. But there were also other teachers who were teaching during his lifetime as well. And the Buddha knew that those teachings didn't lead to enlightenment, that it was his teachings that led to enlightenment. But he would often refer to his community of students as the upright community or the straight community. And he's saying offerings that are made to his community, he's saying out of all these other teachers and all these household practitioners that were supporting all these other students, he was saying, if you make offerings to this community, this is going to bear great fruit. He's saying because these are the people that are composed of wisdom and virtuous behavior. And that's going to then help you to be able to learn that. He says, for people intent on sacrifice, for living beings seeking merit, making merit that ripens in the acquisitions. What the acquisitions are you getting to one of the 4 stages of enlightenment. You practicing merit, it ripens or matures in your ability to actually get to one of these 4 stages as well. That's what the acquisitions are, you acquiring one of the 4 stages of enlightenment. He says, what is given to the community bears great fruit. What he means by this is that anytime somebody is supporting a teacher or a center in order to be able to share the teachings, that they should be using a small portion of that for themselves to be able to sustain their life, like food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. But what you should see coming back to you is you should start seeing opportunities to learn and grow and develop as a student and as a practitioner. You should see a nice center to learn and grow and develop. You should see courses and retreats. You should see books and resources and other things being shared with you at no cost. That's what bears the great fruit. That's the great fruit that's coming back to the community. Because remember, the Buddha was a prince destined to become a king before he stepped away from that. He was rich and he was very wealthy, but he stepped away from those riches in order to live this life of homelessness. So he's not teaching you here to practice generosity in order to enrich himself. Sometimes that's what people see in various communities. You might see that around the world, where people are using teachings like this in order to enrich themselves. Not typically Buddhist teachings, but sometimes other teachings. People will use that to enrich themselves. But that's not what the Buddha was doing, because he was already rich. He stepped away from that. He knew that it was a lot of generosity that he practiced in order to be able to get to enlightenment. In order for you to get to enlightenment, you would need to practice generosity as well. And he actually didn't accept gold and silver, which was the money and currency at the time. He didn't accept land. Sometimes people offered him animals or slaves or women and things like this. He didn't accept any of those things. The only thing he accepted was food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. That's what he accepted as offerings. Nowadays, we do accept financial support because we have to pay electric and water and things like this. That wasn't the case during the lifetime of the Buddha. But nowadays, we have those kinds of expenses. So when the Buddha is teaching you about generosity, he's teaching you because that's what he practiced in order to be able to get to enlightenment. And he knew that you would need to practice it as well. But what you should see is that someone isn't trying to enrich themselves through sharing the teachings. There was actually a case of this in Thailand several years ago, where there was an ordained practitioner who was accepting donations from the community, and they were flying around in a private jet. They had Gucci sunglasses, a Fendi bag, and all these other kinds of stuff. And the Thai people found out about it because this person was putting this all over YouTube. And the police went to go arrest this person for fraud, and they ran away and they went to the USA. and the Thai police put out an Interpol warrant in order to have the U.S. police arrest them. They arrested this person, and then they extradited them back to Thailand, and they put them through the court system, and they were found guilty of fraud, and they were sentenced to 20 years in prison. Right? So Thailand takes this very seriously, that if somebody is in the community and they're sharing the teachings of the Buddha, if they're using that to enrich themselves, the Thai people will step in and they will make some changes and make sure that this person experiences their Kamma, because that's not what the Buddha taught, to enrich yourself as a teacher. A teacher should be using some portion of what they're being shared with them from their students to be able to support themselves, but then you should see opportunities coming back to the community to help you to grow and develop. Whereas if I put like a price tag on my classes, it would right away make it difficult for people to be able to get access to these teachings. So we don't put price tags on the things that we actually do. We just offer everything to the community at no cost. And then we don't have any expectation that anybody will ever share anything with us. We just practice generosity, helping people get to enlightenment. So if there's ever a time that I put a price tag on my courses, right away, it would create an environment where the people who are least advantaged, the impoverished people, the people who maybe need these teachings the most, they wouldn't be able to get access to the teachings. So if this course was like $1,000 for the entire week, right away impoverished people wouldn't be able to get access to these teachings, and they would essentially be stuck. So by us not having a price tag on our teachings, it allows the opportunity for anybody and everybody to study the teachings. And then also, if I put a price tag on my teachings and the courses, it means that I don't understand that a student needs to practice generosity in order to be able to get to enlightenment. They're going to need to be able to practice and produce merit. And instead, if someone's paying a price for a course, they're not actually practicing generosity in that situation. So the Buddha teaches us to just practice generosity and just give and give and give and help our students, and don't ever expect anything in return. And what you should see if you're ever making an offering is you should see that opportunities are coming back to you. You shouldn't be judging people and looking at them like that, but you should use discernment when you're practicing generosity. And you're going to see more of this as I talk here. I've got some more words of the Buddha where he's going to expand this for you and help you to see how to practice discernment or wise decision making about how you practice and share your generosity in the world. But first, let's talk about a few of these things. Practicing generosity of any type, whether it's merit or just pure generosity with somebody else, it's helping you eliminate craving, desire, attachment, which is the cause of discontentedness and the cause of rebirth. So that's helping you to do what the Buddha describes as eliminating the stain of selfishness. That's what practicing generosity in general is doing, is helping you eliminate the stain of selfishness. As you develop confidence in the Buddha, the teachings, and the community, you're seeing the improvement to the condition of your mind. More and more, you're going to be eliminating your doubt about these teachings. Right now, you might have doubt about these teachings. That's normal. Someone doesn't understand. They haven't learned and practiced these teachings enough, maybe, to see the improvement. And people oftentimes have doubt when they first come to this path. But you don't eliminate your doubt through blind belief. The way you eliminate your doubt is by investigating the teachings, examining the teachings, integrating the teachings into your day-to-day life, coming in contact with somebody that can help you to understand the teachings. And as you're seeing that progress and improvement to the condition of your mind in your life, that's where you'll notice that your doubt is starting to be eliminated. And as you're doing that, you might decide, as you see that the teachings are actually working for you, that you'd like to help other people get access to these teachings. And that's when you might decide that you would like to practice merit, because you see that they're actually helpful and beneficial for you. There's a misunderstanding in regards to merit that you're going to see here in Thailand and also many other places in the world, that people think that once you make an offering, that there's a little ceremony that you can do. And when you do this ceremony, it transfers your benefits of your merit to somebody else, typically a dead relative. If you make an offering to an ordained practitioner, they will typically gesture for you to get this little urn of water, and then they will have you pour out this urn of water while they're chanting, and they think that they're transferring their merit to somebody else. Well, if you understand the words of the Buddha and the teachings of the Buddha and what merit is, you understand that you can't transfer the benefits of merit. It's impossible. It's not like dad can, be an alcoholic and abusive and sexually promiscuous his whole life, and then he dies, and then your children, make all this merit and then transfer it to him while he's dead, and this is going to somehow help him. That's not the way it works. The benefit of merit is that you're practicing generosity, training your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. You're training your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. You can't transfer that benefit to somebody else. And if you remember from the natural law of Kamma, where the Buddha says, you are the owner of your Kamma, the heir of your Kamma. Whatever you do, you experience the results, wholesome or unwholesome. You can't transfer your Kamma to somebody else. And merit is just a unique type of wholesome Kamma. So you'll see this happening in certain environments where they'll be pouring out this little water and they think they're transferring the benefit of merit through this rite or ritual or this ceremony. The Buddha never taught any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship, because it doesn't lead to wisdom. So when you see these kinds of things, whether you choose to participate in them or not, it's up to you, but just understand that it's a misunderstanding. And this is a very common misunderstanding that you're going to see in the world around merit. Here, the Buddha is giving you further guidance on how to determine who would be wise for you to make an offering to if you ever decide you would like to make an offering. He's talking to a female because there's this female who asked him a question. So he's using the female pronoun here, but this applies to everybody. And he says to the person, he says, what are the 3 factors for the donor? Like if you're planning to make an offering, he's saying you as a person, you're the donor. What are 3 factors that you should practice in order to purify this offering? He says that it's important to be joyful before you give, that while you're giving, that you're calm and confident, and then after you give, that you should also be joyful. What he's doing here is he's teaching you how to protect your mind, that before you make any kind of offering, that you should think through your offering and make sure that you're not overextending yourself, right? So that you're joyful and you know that when you're making this offering, that it's something that you would like to do. And then when you're in the act of giving, that your mind is calm and confident. And then after giving, your mind is still joyful. If you get to the end of your giving and you're like, oh, I should have gave more. I didn't give enough. I'm so selfish. Why did I do that? I should have gave more. You didn't have thoughtfulness beforehand. So your mind is remorseful. Or maybe you're like, oh, I gave too much. Now I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. How am I going to be able to eat this week? I gave too much. Like maybe now you're remorseful, right? So the Buddha is teaching you how to protect your mind, to be joyful before giving and after giving. And then while you're giving, be calm and confident. And then in terms of the recipient and the person that you're making the offering to, he says, look for people that are free of craving, anger, and ignorance. If someone's free of craving, anger, and ignorance, that means they're enlightened, right? That their mind is completely peaceful, completely joyful. You're not going to see that they're angry and bitter and harsh and hostile and resentful. You're not going to see any of those kinds of things. Or they're practicing for the removal of craving, anger, and ignorance. You might have difficulties discerning this early in your practice, but the Buddha gave you kind of like a shorthand way to understand who would be wise to make offerings to. He talks about someone with a muddled mind. If someone has a muddled mind, it means they're lacking concentration. And if someone has a lack of concentration and a muddled mind, that means they're not practicing the teachings very closely because their mind still has pollution. When you get rid of craving, anger, and ignorance, your mind will be very clear. It'll be very crisp. You'll be able to speak about the teachings with ease. You won't be constantly stumbling over your words, not understanding how to share the teachings. So someone who has a muddled mind, they're not practicing the teachings very closely. So the Buddha taught you to use discernment, that you practice making offerings to virtuous practitioners. And you can look at the quality of somebody's mind, not in a judgmental way, but based in wise decisions. Because if you were making offerings to a teacher or to an ordained practitioner who even though, these things, different people might do those, we're not judging these. But if someone was gambling, if an ordained practitioner was smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, or using drugs, if they were hitting animals and being abusive to people, if you make offerings to this kind of person, you're supporting those kinds of things, right? Your money is going to go to the gambling. Your money is going to go to the drugs and the alcohol and things like this. There's actually ordained practitioners in the world that actually function this way. So the Buddha teaches you to be wise about who you make offerings to. Because if you can imagine, during the lifetime of a Buddha, there were thousands and thousands of people learning from him. And not everybody was learning closely. There were some people who were learning really closely and who understood the teachings very well, but there were people on the outer fringes who weren't practicing the teachings so closely. And he actually gives a discourse about this. He says that if he's a cow and he's walking on the earth, and it was during rainy season when the ground was nice and soft, and he was leaving his cow hoof prints in the soft earth, and there's a donkey behind him putting his hooves into the same hoof prints as the cow, and he's walking behind the cow, and the donkey's thinking, I'm a cow, I'm a cow, I'm a cow. The fact that the donkey is putting its hoof prints in the same hoof prints as the cow, and just because the donkey thinks it's a cow, does that make the donkey a cow? And the answer is no. That doesn't make the donkey a cow, right? So the thought is that just because someone's wearing a orange robe and shaving their hair, that doesn't make them an ordained practitioner. It's your actions that determine whether you're an ordained practitioner. Just because someone's wearing white clothes and shaving their hair, that doesn't mean that they're a wise and wholesome individual. You need to have discernment when you're making offerings. You need to look at what an individual is doing, what is their practice, and then decide whether that's something that you're interested in supporting. Because if you support that, then your time, your effort, your energy, your resources are going to go to supporting those kinds of things. And the Buddha taught you to be wise about how you support different efforts in the community. Because if you'd like to see these teachings really flourish in a community, you would like to support teachers and ordained practitioners who are practicing the teachings closely. So this is some of that guidance that he's giving you on this. So let me share one more thing, and then I'll open up to questions, and then I have some more to share after that. When the Buddha was asked during his lifetime, how do you kind of boil your teachings down to something simple, that we can just practice on a day-to-day basis? Because in order to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to know the Eightfold Path in and out, backwards and forwards. You're going to need to know other teachings in and out, backwards and forwards. And you gradually build up that wisdom over time. But when you're first getting started, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And it's like, hold on a second, what can I just be doing on a day-to-day basis? Just real simple things. Just boil it down for me. What can I be doing every single day to make my way to enlightenment? And he said there's these three things. It's called the way of practice. That if you're practicing generosity, moral conduct, and meditation, you're making your way to enlightenment. And he's talking about doing this frequently, every single day. So generosity is the giving and sharing with the people around you. That's helping your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So you would like to be practicing some amount of generosity every single day, right? And, maybe like I mentioned to you before, you're going in a store and you'd like to hold the door for the person behind you. That's an easy way to practice generosity. Just be sure you do it without any expectation of anything in return, that you're not even expecting a thank you. Maybe somebody drops their wallet on the ground. Oh, sir, ma'am, you dropped your wallet. Takes you all of 5 seconds to do that. That's generosity. So it doesn't have to be 5 hours of work. You can be practicing generosity day by day, right? I think some of you guys have been bringing in food and sharing it with each other, right? Or things like this. Or I've seen some of you taking out the trash here, right? It takes you all of 3 minutes to bundle up some trash. You're walking out of the temple anyway. You're walking right past the trash bin. You can just toss it right in, right? It takes you all of a few seconds to really do something like that. So you can integrate generosity into your day-to-day life, and you can find ways that you can do that. So you'd like to practice a certain amount of generosity. That's going to help you eliminate craving, desire, attachment. Then he talks about improving your moral conduct, that you'd like to practice right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Essentially, if you're going to clean up your unwholesome Kamma that you've generated in the past, the way you might think about it is right now you've got this pipe and it's got oil spewing all over the world. You're right. There's been this break of the pipe, and now you've got this oil spewing all over the world. And you've got this oil that's been collecting on the ground, but you're not going to go clean that up first. You need to shut down the pipe, right? Shut down the spewing oil all over the world. So by you cleaning up your moral conduct, that's like shutting down the pipe so you don't keep generating unwholesome Kamma. And then when you shut down the pipe, then you go clean up your unwholesome Kamma that you've created in the past. You clean up the oil that you've been spilling. So if you work on improving your moral conduct in your different relationships, this is helping you get to enlightenment. You're going to find that to be the most challenging with your parents, with your siblings, with your life partner, your children, people that you're really close to. That's going to be the most challenging ones. But if you can work out that within your own mind, now you're making your way to enlightenment by improving your moral conduct. Then the thing that's going to help you with all of this is your meditation. That every day, if you're meditating, this is going to help you to practice the moral conduct. So this generosity, moral conduct, and meditation that you're practicing frequently, day by day by day by day by day, is helping you get to enlightenment. But if it wasn't for practicing merit with your generosity, then you would never learn the moral conduct and you would never learn the meditation, because you need the teachings to come into the world. So that's one of the reasons why merit is so important. Okay, so do you guys have any questions here before I move on? I'm going to share some more words of the Buddha with you, but I'd like to just pause and see if you guys have any questions on anything I've shared so far. Remember, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can ask questions here with the microphones. So it looks like you have a question.
So my question related to like a Kamma you created before, like the unwholesome Kamma, like as all of us now, it's like I'm pretty sure we have a lot of unwholesome Kamma from the past. And what do you see that, and what we can do to let them go? Because at this moment, probably we still experience a lot of them, and then the mind, the feelings, and the thought, and the ideas are still connected to the past. And how we see that, or do we see that as a debt we have to pay off, or something?
Yeah, so you can't go back into the past and change what's been done in the past. All you can do is now train your mind through the Eightfold Path so that as any unwholesome Kamma is coming back to you, that you extinguish it. It's like burying it in the sand. So you don't have to worry. You don't have to be stressed or have anxiety that the fact that this unwholesome Kamma is going to come back to you. Just know that it is going to come back to you. And as it's coming back to you, figure out a way to extinguish it. Right. So I can give you example after example of students that I've helped through these kinds of things, but getting up and running on your Eightfold Path. And now as anything's coming back to you, just start extinguishing it through practicing the Eightfold Path.
Is that you have to cultivate your wisdom to identify that first?
Yeah, that's why you're cultivating wisdom, so that when the unwholesome Kamma is coming back to you, you can identify what it is and now extinguish it. Because what we tend to do with our lack of wisdom is when we experience unwholesome things is we look for someone else to blame. Right away, because our ego's in there. We think we're so great, everybody else is the problem, and we try to blame everybody else. And in this situation, you don't cultivate any wisdom, and you just keep experiencing the same problems over and over and over again. But if you understand the natural law of Kamma, that anything you experience, it is from your Kamma. Now, when something comes back to you, it's like, what's going on here? How can I resolve this? How can I fix this? What can I do differently next time so that this kind of thing doesn't occur? And where you need help, that's where you reach out to a teacher, and that's where we can help you and help you to be able to see those things.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'm going to go on here. I don't see any questions anywhere. So the Buddha taught this particular teaching, and I typically share it with students because it was very impactful when I first came across it, and I think it'll be helpful for you guys too. This is titled, If Beings Knew the Results of Giving and Sharing. Monks, if beings knew, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would the stain of selfishness obsess them and take root in their minds. Even if it were their last bite, their last mouthful, they would not eat without having shared it, if there were someone to share it with. But because beings do not know, as I know, the results of giving and sharing. They eat without having given, and the stain of selfishness obsesses them and takes root in their minds. So what's this results of giving and sharing that he's talking about that he knows that everybody else doesn't know? It's enlightenment. What he's saying is if people understood how peaceful and joyful the enlightened mental state is, and that it's generosity that leads to that, they would not eat without having shared it if there was someone to share it with. Because if you knew how peaceful and joyful the enlightened mental state is, and it was generosity that leads to that, you would not eat without having shared it, even if it was your last bite, your last mouthful. So oftentimes what we do in the unenlightened state because of craving is we tend to hoard our food, and that's something that makes it really challenging for us to share. I would encourage you to look for ways to share all things in your life, including your food. Here in Asia, we tend to put the food in the middle of the table and everybody kind of eats. We call it family style, right? Because if you're a family of 4 or family of 6 or family of 8 out in remote Thailand and you don't really have much resources, you might not have enough food for everybody, right? So if you put all the food in the middle, and this family of 4, family of 6, they take 2 or 3 spoonfuls and they put it on their plate, and then they eat those 2 or 3 spoonfuls, and then they take another 2 or 3 spoonfuls, and then they eat those 2 or 3 spoonfuls, and everybody's doing that around the table. At the end of this meal, everybody's gotten a little bit of food, but not everybody's probably full by the end of this meal, because we don't have enough food for everybody, but everybody's gotten a little bit of food, right? And we've shared it instead of hoarding it. So this might be something that you choose to do, is kind of put food in the middle. You probably can get full every single meal, right? You probably have enough resources to be able to do that, but not everybody in the world has that ability. And even though you have the ability to become full at the end of every meal, it's wise to share your food. So say you go to 7-Eleven and you get a bag of potato chips and you got a bunch of friends around, pop open the bag of potato chips and send it around, right? Say, here, guys, would you like a potato chip, right? And you send it around. And if it comes back and there's only 1 potato chip left, eat your 1 potato chip and go get another bag, right? No big deal. Share your food. This is really helpful. You'll see that your mind will have a tendency to let go. If you're washing your clothes and your clothes come out and they're ripped and torn, and you see you get frustrated and agitated, you know you're attached to your clothes, because you're frustrated, agitated that your clothes are ripped or torn. So maybe you give away some of your clothes, right? Or maybe you're noticing that there's certain jewelry that you're holding on to. And if you didn't have this jewelry, your mind would be really upset. Maybe you need to share this with other people. Maybe you don't need to give it away. Maybe you just let people wear it for a period of time. This is a way to practice generosity and train your mind to let go. Here in Thailand, they have donation boxes all over the place. Like if you go into various restaurants or stores and stuff like this is an opportunity for you to be able to practice generosity related to money, because oftentimes that's a thing that people are really attached to, is their money. And what you'll notice with generosity is frequency is more important than duration or the amount, just like meditation, where frequency is more important than duration. With generosity, frequency is more important than the amount, right? So if you were going to give $500 once a year to an orphanage, that's not going to be as impactful as giving $1 a day every single day, because your mind has to let go every single day. So when you see all these different donation boxes around Thailand, maybe you put 10 baht or 20 baht, right? And in your day, maybe you've given out 50 baht or 60 baht or 100 baht, which is like $2 or $3. But every day, 3, 4, 5 times a day, you have to let go of money, let go of money, let go of money, let go of money. So maybe like 10 baht, 20 baht each donation box that you're seeing, like out in the restaurants and in different department stores and grocery stores and things like this, your mind can be letting go and letting go and letting go. And this is really helpful for your mind. So the Buddha is teaching you to give and share, because that's what's going to train your mind to let go. And he knows that the results of this is enlightenment. But because you don't know what that peaceful and joyful mental state is, your mind might be holding on. But it's this generosity that's going to help you to get closer and closer to enlightenment. Here he's talking about the benefits of giving. So I'll share this one with you. He says, monks, there are these 5 benefits of giving. What 5? 1 is dear and agreeable to many people. Wholesome persons go in large numbers to 1. 1 acquires a wholesome reputation. 1 is not deficient in the householder's duties. With the breakup of the body after death, one is reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. These are the 5 benefits of giving. By giving, one becomes dear. One follows the duty of the wholesome. The wholesome, mentally disciplined monks always go in large numbers to one. They teach one the teachings that dispels all discontentedness, having understood which, the taintless one here attains nibbana, or enlightenment. So here the Buddha is teaching these 5 benefits of giving, and I think the first 4 are pretty self-explanatory for you, but if you're interested in understanding more about those, just let me know. I'd like to focus in on number 5 here, because whenever the Buddha is teaching about generosity or any of these other teachings, every once in a while you'll see him talk about this rebirth in the heavenly world. And the reason why is because any of his teachings that he's sharing, if you practice those teachings, it's going to get you to enlightenment. That's the ultimate goal, is to get to enlightenment in this life, experience the peace and joy for the rest of your life, and you'll know that your mind is enlightened. But if for any reason you fall short of enlightenment, there's the potential that you can be reborn into the heavenly world. So that's why he's including this here as one of the benefits. The ultimate goal isn't to be reborn in the heavenly world. That's not what the Buddha is teaching you. In fact, that's not even an ideal existence. Those beings are still in the cycle of rebirth. It's not a permanent existence in the heavenly realm. They still have to get to enlightenment, but they tend to be somewhat complacent in the heavenly realm, and they tend to not actually do the work to get to enlightenment. In this human realm, you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. So you tend to have built-in motivation because you don't like those painful feelings and you'd like to get away from them. In the heavenly realm, they only have pleasant feelings, so they tend to not have built-in motivation like us here in the human realm. So the Buddha is just helping you to be able to see that, yes, one of the benefits of giving is that you could potentially be reborn in this heavenly realm, but that's not the ultimate goal. That's not what he's teaching you to accomplish. So you'll see this from time to time. It's not the Buddha dangling a carrot saying, hey, hurry up, like give him lots of money in order to get to heaven. That's not what he's sharing. He's just showing you this cause and effect, because if you have less craving in your mind, and that's what generosity is going to do for you, is knock down your craving. It's going to knock down your anger. It's going to knock down your ignorance. Then there's more of an opportunity to be reborn in the heavenly world. But that's not the goal. The goal is to get to enlightenment now in this life, right? So that's what he's teaching you here. And then he's teaching you these other things too over here. Here he's got this teaching called gifts of the teachings is superior than gifts of material things. Monks, there are these 2 kinds of gifts, a gift of material things and a gift of the teachings. Of these 2 kinds of gifts, this is supreme, a gift of the teachings. There are these 2 kinds of sharing, sharing of material things and sharing of the teachings. Of these 2 kinds of sharing, this is supreme, sharing of the teachings. There are these 2 kinds of assistance, assistance with material things and assistance with the teachings. Of these 2 kinds of assistance, this is supreme, assistance with the teachings. What he's saying is that one of the best things you could ever do is help someone get access to the teachings, because that's what's going to help them to eliminate their anger and their sadness and their frustration and all these other discontent feelings. If there were 2 buttons to press, where you could press button A, and your family and friends would be angry and bitter and harsh the rest of their life, or there was button B and you could press that button and they would be peaceful and joyful for the rest of their life, which button would you press, A or B? Which one? You'd press B, so your family and friends could be peaceful and joyful for the rest of their life? Yeah, most people say that they would press button B, right? Well, unfortunately, it's not a button that we can press, right? It'd be wonderful if it was, but we can't. But what we can do is we can make the teachings available for our generation and for future generations. And that's what has actually transpired. This place where you're at right now, this temple is over 500 years old. And at one time, this land was owned by a Thai person, and a Thai person must have experienced a certain amount of benefit with the teachings of the Buddha. And they said, you know what? I would like to give my land so that other people can get access to the teachings. And they donated their land. And then a bunch of people came together and they put together resources to start building all these different buildings. And now what you see around you, Every single thing that you see was a donation from somebody in order to help others get access to the teachings. Not just the land and the buildings, but everything you see in this room, like these projectors, the cameras, the carpets, the screen, the air conditioning. We just actually remodeled this about 3 months ago, and students contributed a significant amount of resources to completely remodel this. This is remodeled. This room used to be really run down and old and dilapidated, but we completely gutted it and rebuilt it. And that's what you guys are experiencing, because people experienced a certain amount of benefit that at one point it was just me sitting in here with no air conditioning and no nothing, and we'd be in here meditating with no microphone, no projector, really just an old beat up projector, no air conditioning, and we'd be sweating like crazy. Even in the hot season, we'd be in here meditating. I could feel the sweat rolling down my body inside my clothing, right? But slowly but surely, students were like, hey, these teachings are really helping me. I would like to see other people benefit from this. And you guys are getting the benefit of that people before you have contributed in a way to help you create a nicer environment that you could come and learn and grow and develop with these teachings. So one by one, people are like, hey, David, we'd like to get you a projector, or we'd like to do this, or we'd like to do that. And slowly but surely, you see this amazing center that has come together that is helping you guys to get access to the teachings. So that's what people have done here, is that they're helping you and helping others to get access to the teachings. And should you ever decide you would like to do that someday, that's wonderful. But just understand that I have no expectation that you'll ever give me anything or help me in any way. I'm just here to help you without any expectation of anything in return. If you have helped me in any way, like if you've taken out the trash, if you've swept the floor, if you've helped financially, if you've done any kind of assistance to help me share these teachings, I would like to let you know that I'm very appreciative of that, and thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate anything you can do, because you helping me is like helping me to help you. Right? That's what I'm doing here, is I'm helping all the students to be able to get access to the teachings. So I appreciate you helping me, which allows me to then help you. So thank you for that. But just know that you can always and forever get help here with these teachings. And I don't have any expectation of anything from you whatsoever. But because there are some people around the world who do support what I do, it allows me to help everybody and anybody. There's people that live on like remote islands off the coast of Africa, and they've sent me emails and messages, and they said, David, I really would like to let you know I really appreciate what you're doing, because our community doesn't even have a library, but we have access to the internet, and I was able to download your books and actually learn the teachings of the Buddha through your books. Thank you so much for sharing your books, right? Or I've had people in, small villages in different places that they tell me that they're living off of $50 a month, and they barely have money to buy food and clothing and shelter and things like this, but they can still learn the teachings because I'm offering them at no cost. So the people that are able to support me, it helps me to accomplish the things that I need to accomplish, but then I can share the teachings with everybody and anybody in the world without any expectation of anything in return. So I really appreciate your support in any way that you do to help me to be able to offer these teachings to you and to countless other people around the world, because it's the very best thing we could ever do, is share the teachings with others to be able to get access to being able to understand how to eliminate their discontent feelings. And then this last one here, the Buddha teaches, it's called mutual support between monks, Brahmins, and householders. What a Brahmin is we might refer to this person as a Hindu priest. That during the lifetime of the Buddha, there was Hinduism that was being practiced throughout that region of the world. There was a very strong caste system in place, whereas if you were born into a Brahmin family, you were considered to be holy. And now you performed rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, and the rest of the community would come to you and pay you a fee in order to perform a ceremony. And what these people thought is that in order to improve their life, they needed to go to these Brahmin, pay a fee, and that person would do some kind of ceremony or prayer or worship, and then you were going to go home and your life was going to get better. Well, the Buddha knew that this wasn't true, and that's not what the Buddha was teaching, because it's cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions that are going to determine what you experience in life. So the Buddha was teaching you to cultivate wisdom. And by having more and more wisdom, you'll make wise decisions in your life. And that's what's going to produce wholesome results. But nonetheless, these Brahmin, they were still doing these rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. And sometimes they would come to the Buddha in order to be able to learn his teachings, because they were teaching a little bit of moral conduct at the same time that they were doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. So the Buddha is teaching his monks here. He says, monks, Brahmins and householders are very helpful to you. They provide you with the requisites of robes, alms foods, lodging, and medicines in time of sickness. And you, monks, are very helpful to Brahmins and householders as you teach them the teachings that are good in the beginning, the middle, and the end, with the correct meaning and wording, and you proclaim the spiritual life in its fulfillment in complete purity. Thus, monks, this spiritual life is lived with mutual support for the purposes of crossing the flood and making a complete end of discontentedness. So the Buddha is talking about this mutual support, right? Like students supporting teachers and teachers supporting the students. That's what you should see. If you're supporting a particular center or a teacher, you should see that they're supporting you also. You're not interested in judging people and looking down on them and having expectations and trying to control someone. But if you're going to support a particular center or an individual that's sharing the teachings, you should see that they're more than willing to support you as well in your journey to enlightenment. Not because you're supporting them, but you should see them not only supporting you, but other people as well. And that's what the Buddha taught, right? That there's this mutual support. Because if he had taught a bunch of people how to get to enlightenment and they had a career on the side where they were like working and doing things like this and making money, they wouldn't necessarily have motivation to share the teachings with other people. So if these people got to enlightenment and they were also making money in some business or career, the Buddha couldn't have ensured that his teachings would continue. So the way that the Buddha did this is he encouraged people who were interested in being teachers to really fully devote themselves to teaching and kind of letting go of worldly pursuits where you're no longer pursuing a career or business or something like that. So that way you can fully give to your students and help them and support them. Whereas if I had a business on the side and I was like working some business, at the end of class or at different times on the weekends and stuff, when students need my help, I wouldn't be able to help them. I'd be off over here attending to the business because that's the way that I was earning my living. But if you teach and you're helping the students and you don't eat if you don't teach, then this individual is going to be much more motivated to share the teachings, right? Anybody who has gotten to enlightenment and is sharing the teachings, they could easily go off and get a job somewhere. An enlightened being will function very well professionally, and they would be very successful at doing so. But individuals who do choose to share the teachings, they're doing that out of the kindness of their heart. And I would suggest that there's nobody who's sharing the teachings of the Buddha trying to get rich, right? Because you don't get rich sharing the teachings of the Buddha. I made way more money when I was in my career and as a business owner and as a professional, way more money doing that kind of thing. But instead, I've decided that that's not what leads to peacefulness for me. This is what I thoroughly enjoy. And I would much rather help people to get to enlightenment, because now it's not about making money for me. It's about helping people to be able to understand this path and experience this mental state of enlightenment. So this is what the Buddha set up at the very beginning, is that there's this mutual support between teachers and students. And whether you choose to do those kinds of things or not is totally up to you. As I mentioned, there's never an expectation from me that students will ever do anything or share anything with me, but whenever they do, I'm just always very appreciative. So just understand that I have much appreciation and gratitude for people who do decide to do those kinds of things. So this is merit and what merit is. Do you guys have any questions on any of this? You have a question? To do what? You mean for me or for you? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. You're saying for someone that shares the teachings, right? Yeah. Yeah, so like when I decided to switch to this, like I used to be a business owner and I was making all kinds of money in the past. And then I went away from that and I needed to kind of transition into doing this work. For a long time, I never accepted donations. For about a year and a half, I never accepted donations because I had money that was left over from my businesses and I was able to use that. But I got to the point where I'd exhausted all those resources. So I ended up getting a job where I was working like 12 hours a day. 12 hours a week to do some work and just get a little bit of money coming in to be able to afford food and stuff like that. But all the while, I was writing books, I was doing presentations, I was creating course content and podcasts and videos and things like this. I was bringing all of that stuff up and running. And then as I was making that money doing other things and I was sharing these teachings, students started saying to me like, hey, we would like to donate to you. And initially I wouldn't accept any donations, but then eventually I started accepting them. And then once my donations got up to the same point as that job that I was working, I got rid of that job and then just continued to work and share these teachings the way that I do. But even still, what I get in donations here is nothing compared to what I used to make when I was in business. I would make more in 1 hour than I make in an entire month with donations doing this. But then my life was very different back then too. You know, the clothing that I wore, the lifestyle that I led, the things that I spent money on, it was very different back then. So now I've brought my expenses down to a bare minimum, and now I can live a peaceful life based on, you know, very minimal amount of support and funds.
Yeah, but the pressure, it must have been horrendous. I mean, you know, I can understand thinking at the moment and don't think of the future, but you know, you got bills coming in and my money's not going to be there. That pressure must have been enormous.
I didn't have any pressure because I knew that what I was doing was putting the teachings together, not for money. It wasn't for money. It was never about money for me. It was always about, I know these teachings and I would like to figure out how to get them in the hands of other people, because I knew there would be students someday that would need these teachings. And back then there weren't very many students, but now there's tons and tons and tons of students. But I knew in that time frame that it was just a matter of me putting together the right content and delivering it in a certain way that students would get access to it. So that was the motivator for me. It wasn't the money, because I'd already had the money in the past. So I didn't feel any pressure in terms of money, because one of the things I did when I was in business is I did things like purchased a house. So I don't have a mortgage payment. I don't have a rent payment. My wife still works. She pays the electric and the water. She was paying for a fair amount of the food. I was using my money to kind of help my son and things like this. So we were just getting by for many, many years. But I knew that what I was doing was important work and that someday there was going to be students that would really benefit from this. So that's what motivated me to keep going. But I didn't feel any pressure.
And it was also Kamma.
It's all Kamma. That's what I knew, that if I kept putting out this content, that eventually students would be getting benefit and they would be willing to support me. But I didn't do it for that. I was doing it because I was interested in helping. And when you focus on helping people, you'll never have to worry about money. Because even when I was in business, that's what I used to do. I used to focus on helping people, and I always had money available to me. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had a question about giving. And it sounds like there are two sides to the value of a gift. The giver becomes comfortable with impermanence and being able to let things go. And the recipient obviously is the beneficiary of some gift. As the giver who's becoming comfortable sharing, how do you manage when the recipient may not value or use responsibly, or as we would deem responsibly, whatever we're giving? Or do we even care?
Sure.
Do we just let that go as well? I mean, you gave the example of the food sharing. You know, you could have one person who takes all the food, or in the gifts of $500 and you give $1 a day, the value of that. What if they squander the money? I mean, there are so many things that they could do with this that maybe that's part of just letting go.
Yeah. If you're going to give, you need to do it without any expectation of what that person will or will not do with that gift, right? So your benefit is that your mind's letting go. And part of that letting go is that if you give any kind of offering of time, effort, energy, or resources, that you don't have an expectation of what that person will do with it, because that's their Kamma. Once you give them the gift, you've just generated wholesome Kamma within your own mind. And now what they choose to do with that is their Kamma. So you need to be able to be willing to let that go. But at the same time, you can practice discernment where you observe like, I gave, like when I was just in the US, they were very generous with me and gave me a certain amount of funds. And I came back here and within like 2 days, I was buying stuff for the temple and helping out, paying for the electric and the water and tools and equipment for our cleanup day and stuff like that. And that's what I used that money for. I didn't tell those people that that's what I did, but if they looked at what I did with the money that they gave me, I was using it for here to help us here. And that's what you would like to see, that anytime you're making offerings, that the person's using it for themselves, because there's going to be food and clothing and shelter and medical care for themselves, but you should see that there's things coming back to the community. And you just kind of observe that, not with an expectation of what they will or won't do, but you just observe and you just notice. Because if you have an expectation, people aren't going to meet your expectations sometimes, and you're going to be frustrated and agitated. But if you just give without an expectation, but then you just observe what's happening, and then you just decide whether it would be wise for you to continue to do that or not. And that'll help protect your mind. Okay, so now I'm going to move into this next topic of continued support on the path to enlightenment. Because beyond this course, you're going to need continued support. Nobody's going to get to enlightenment in 5 days. It's not possible, right? So there's things that I'm offering for you guys that are all available at no cost to be able to help you guys continue on your journey to enlightenment. There's books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, and quizzes, all available from our website. If you go to our website, you'll be able to see all the links for these things to help you continue to learn the teachings. There's in-person and online classes, courses, and retreats. You can learn here, but also I travel around the world and teach at different places. When students invite me to come teach, I make sure that when they set it up, it's at no cost. So when I just went to California, I taught 5 days there, and it was at no cost. I went to Mexico last year. I taught 2 different courses, 5 days each, and it was at no cost. So the person who's inviting me to come and hosting me, they will set up classes in a way that they're available at no cost. So no matter where you see me teaching, it's always at no cost, whether it's in person or online. And most of the times that I'm teaching, not only am I teaching in person, but I'm live streaming it as well. So even when I was in California, the host ended up purchasing equipment to allow me to live stream it. And that was part of their generosity. I didn't tell them to do that or require them to do that, but that was their choice, that they chose to live stream it so that other people could get access to it. So you can always get access to these through our website. You're going to see all the different courses that I teach. There's 2 ongoing courses or programs that are both in person and online. It's called the Group Learning Program, in the words of the Buddha, the Pali Canon and English Study Group. What the group learning program is that this first book that you guys have kind of started on within this course, I go chapter by chapter every Sunday, helping students to understand the path to enlightenment with this first book. So this is a 7-month program where each Sunday I do a talk on a particular chapter. And then on Wednesdays, I do meditation with students and open up to any and all questions that they might have. So this is where students oftentimes will start. So we're going to be restarting this program on June 1st. So no matter where you are in the world, you can attend here in Chiang Mai or you can attend online. And I teach it at 9 a.m. on Sunday mornings and 9 p.m. Sunday night. I do it from my home on Sunday evening. So no matter what time zone you're in, you should be able to get access to a live class. And if you can't access the live class, it's recorded so you could watch it on Monday or Tuesday. Because like at 9 a.m. when I'm teaching here, the people in England or the UK, they're sleeping, right? So that's why I teach it at 9 9 p.m. also, because by that time people in Germany and Europe and other places have woken up and now they can attend. So if you would like to attend this program, you guys would be fine to go right into this program, and you can really start at any time. Even though it's restarting on June 1st, you could actually start, this Sunday. And we're in chapter 21 now, but you could start anywhere. People have not even had this class before, and they start right in the middle or towards the end, and you'll be just fine. Then there's the Polycanon and English Study Group. What that is volumes 2 through 13. I go through it every Saturday at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. here at 9 a.m. and I live stream it, and then 9 p.m. from home and I live stream that. So over a 1.5 year period, we go through volumes 2 through 13 of the book series. So oftentimes students are finishing up the group learning program, and then they're going into this Polycanon and English Study Group. By way of those of you guys that have taken pretty much this entire course, even if you were here as of like Tuesday, you could take either one of these programs. Some people like to go into the group learning program and really work with that for a while and then move into the Polycanon and English Study Group. Some people will just go right into the Polycanon and English Study Group if you like. You could do that if you've been attending this particular course. Sometimes people do both, depending on how much time you have in your life. But if you're working and you have a career and a family, that would be pretty challenging for you to do both, because there's reading that you would need to do before class, kind of like about an hour of reading for this one, and this one about an hour to an hour and a half of reading for this one, and then the course, the class themselves. So some people actually do both. Usually they're retirees or like stay-at-home moms or dads. Sometimes they like to do that, but usually you just kind of pick one or the other and just kind of go into that. Then as you're learning and growing and developing with all these resources, if you need personal guidance at any point, you can reach out to me and I'll help you. You can, if you're in the same city with me, we can sit down and talk privately. Just send me a message or come talk to me and let me know that you'd like to sit down and talk in person. Or if you'd like to meet online, there's a website, our website. If you go to our website, there's a link to schedule an appointment, and you can schedule an appointment, and then we just meet in Zoom. In the appointment times, it's going to show you whatever time zone you're in. It's going to show you the times that I have available, and then you can schedule that appointment, and then it'll send you a link so that we can meet in Zoom, and then we just talk one-on-one in Zoom. And you can schedule as many of these as you like, because it's one thing learning in the classes and courses like the way you guys have done this week, but it's a whole other thing relating it to your personal experiences, right? When you're talking to your mom, when you're talking to your life partner, when your boss is putting demands on you and stuff like that. If you're interested in learning how to apply these teachings in a specific situation, that's where having a private discussion with your teacher can be really helpful. You can talk about the difficulties and challenges in a more personal way. Then we have a Facebook group where students post questions in there, and I'm the only one who answers them. Other students might ask questions, but I'm the only one who answers the questions. So if you would like to post into the Facebook group, you're more than welcome to do that. And if you don't typically use Facebook, that's fine. Some people like to just open up an ID and they just put like a flower or rainbow on their picture, and they don't even like post anything personally on their own personal profile. They will just come into the Facebook group in order to post questions and ask questions. And they also learn from looking at other people's questions, and they see the answers that I get from other people, and that's like a really nice way to learn as well. So these are all options for you to be able to learn at no cost. And here's kind of like the schedule. The group learning program is Sunday and Wednesday, 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. And then the Polycanon and English Study Group is Saturday from 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. And these are the two ongoing programs. You guys have any questions on continued support? You'll find a calendar and all the course descriptions and everything right online. We have some of that stuff on the bulletin board over there, but our website's like a central hub, and it kind of launches off from there. Okay, so it's almost 12 o'clock. It's about 5 minutes till. So what I'm going to do is have an hour-and-a-half lunch break here where you guys can come back at 1:30. And in 1:30, I'm going to teach you guys how to integrate the teachings into your day-to-day life, things that you can take the lessons from this class and actually integrating them into your day-to-day life. And then we're going to talk about the field trip, and we're going to talk about kind of like an activity that you guys can participate in this afternoon as well if you'd like. So enjoy your lunch, and perhaps I'll see you guys at 1:30. Okay? Take care. Thank you so much.